Buddhism is a world religion founded by the Buddha in ancient India. Buddhists seek wisdom, meaning, inner peace, and freedom from greed, hatred, and ignorance. Mutually sustaining life, a Buddhist call to a troubled world.
Buddhism teaches wisdom and compassion. But another important teaching is upaya, which means expediency, or choosing the right means to accomplish an end.
Hello, we're glad you've joined us. As all of us know, the relationship between religion and science has not always been a harmonious one, particularly for Christianity in Europe, where modern science began. For example, the Catholic Church condemned Galileo for his views, and it was not until 1995 that the Church pardoned him for what was once considered incorrect ways. And in North America, in the late 19th century, the theory of evolution proposed by Charles Darwin clashed with the traditional Christian view of creation. A similar kind of conflict continues even today in the area of school curriculum. Many of the public school districts throughout America, some Christian groups are vigorously opposing the teaching of the theory of evolution in favor of the creationist or the so-called intelligent design position. When dissensions surfaced in the late 19th century, some Americans were no longer satisfied with the traditional Christian understanding of the origin of the universe and its development. Some sought answers in other religions, such as Buddhism. One such person was Paul Carus. He found himself unable to reconcile science and theology of the time. He desperately sought what he called a religion of science that could accommodate science and its worldview. He found the answer in Buddhism. Regarding his view on science, he once stated, quote, "Buddhism is a religion which recognizes no other revelation except for the truth that can be proved by science," unquote. And he spoke of the Buddha as the first prophet of the religion of science. We can feel the enthusiasm that Carus felt for having found the right religion, but we also realize that he had reduced Buddhism to what he wanted to see. For example, he focused on the karmic law of cause and effect as a law of nature, but he ignored the less scientific elements of traditional Buddhism, such as meditation practices and the esoteric and the miraculous elements. We continue to see the same kind of approach and conclusion by more recent thinkers, such as Fritjof Capra in his landmark book, The Tao of Physics. While not very many Buddhists would go so far as Carus or Capra to equate Buddhism with science, they are in line with a basic view held today by most Buddhists that Buddhism does not conflict with science. One such person is the Dalai Lama, who has been at the forefront of dialogue between Buddhists and scientists. One statement he made really caught my attention. The Dalai Lama announced that in the domain of the natural realm, Buddhists should adjust any traditional understanding if it is refuted by science. For example, he would have no problem abandoning the classical Buddhist worldview that sees the towering Mount Sumeru at the center of the world, surrounded by 7 to 8 concentric circles of mountains and oceans, and 4 main continents. In the same vein, the Dalai Lama would be fully open to the latest theories regarding the origins of the universe attributed to the mechanism of subatomic particles. Some may find the Dalai Lama's position to be too compromising, but his view is in keeping with the basic Buddhist position that scientific findings do not weaken or negate Buddhist truth and its message. This is because Buddhism is a religion of awakening, concerned foremost with how we experience life rather than how things happen, which is the realm of science. Put another way, Buddhism seeks spiritual awakening, while science seeks verifiable knowledge about the natural realm. Despite the differences, Buddhism has always attracted me for its openness to encompass both the spiritual and the natural. And I'm happy to learn that Albert Einstein had made similar observations about Buddhism when he stated, Buddhism has the characteristics of what would be expected in a cosmic religion for the future. It transcends a personal God, avoids dogmas and theology. It covers both the natural and the spiritual, and it is based on a religious sense aspiring from the experience of all things, natural and spiritual, as a meaningful unity. So, what does all this talk about Buddhism and science have to do with the problems of life? Well, I like to take the example of a fatal illness. Some years ago, when I was serving as a minister of a temple in California, a member in her 50s died of cancer. She was an extremely devout and hardworking member of the temple. Plus, she was a wonderful person, liked by everyone who knew her. Many people ask, why her? Behind the dismay was a nagging question that people everywhere have asked from time immemorial. Why do bad things happen to good people? Perhaps in other religions the answer might be it's God's will. However, in Buddhism, we wouldn't say it's Buddha's will, since Buddha is not a creator, designer, or judge. In my view, there are two categories of a cause and effect relationship that can possibly provide an adequate response to the question of how could this happen to her. One is objective conditions, niyama, and the second is personal karma. In my view, her cancer was not due to her personal karma. Her illness and death must be explained within the category of objective conditions or laws that determines such things as environment, weather, and heredity. In her case, objective conditions point to a myriad of circumstances that contributed to the illness. These could include a genetic disposition to the disease, her past exposure to some carcinogenic chemicals, her eating habits, and her stress level. But there are numerous other possible contributions that can rarely be accurately isolated. This is the natural realm as distinct from the spiritual realm. As the natural realm, it's the domain where science can provide us with the best possible understanding of how she became afflicted with the disease. If the causes of the cancer lie in the natural realm, then what role does personal karma play? Well, personal karma functions in the realm of the spiritual or the vertical plane, while science functions in the natural realm or the horizontal plane. We live each moment where the two planes intersect. Karma determines how we experience life, while science attempts to determine how things happen. Karma is a Sanskrit word that has now become part of the everyday English language. But unfortunately, it's often misunderstood as fate. Karma is often used to justify misfortune, as in, well, that was his karma. In such usage, suffering is retribution or punishment for some negative deeds previously committed, either in this life or in prior lives. This idea is absolutely wrong and must be rectified. The correct Buddhist meaning of karma is action, in which a person thinks, says, and does, mostly in the context of spiritual and moral cultivation. By diligently following the correct teachings, karma can lead to positive results as manifested in a life of wisdom, compassion, and joy. Here, however, we must be careful in noting what the positive result we speak about is from the spiritual perspective on the vertical plane. On the other hand, when measured from the mundane perspective on the horizontal plane, her short life would not be judged positive. However, I believe that we cannot judge whether one's life was positive or negative, or a success or failure, from the mere perspective of the natural and the horizontal. In the final analysis, only she and no one else can make that final determination. Would it have been more positive had she lived another 20 years, but without the kind of spiritual understanding and peace she had come to realize? She lived life fully with wisdom and compassion, and she faced death with understanding and courage. She was at peace with herself. As one proof of this, she decided to donate her body to a research hospital. She was determined to make a contribution to medical science to find a cure for her kind of cancer. Even in death, she thought about the welfare of others. Here we have an excellent example of an open and inclusive Buddhist attitude towards science, since she knew that science does not undermine her Buddhist faith. On this point, her understanding reflects Albert Einstein's observation that Buddhism encompasses the, quote, natural and spiritual as a meaningful unity. Thanks for joining us, and please tune in again next week when we learn about Project Dana, a Buddhist social service program in Hawaii.
We at Bukkyo Dendo Kyokai pursue peace and happiness for people around the world. We have published the Buddhist teachings into 41 languages and donated our publication to hotels and other facilities in 55 countries. We would like to share the Buddhist teachings with people around the world. That's our mission. Visit our website for more information.